Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Damaged Darts. Today we're going to be doing part 2 of the two-part series of converting a standard Nerf Han Solo blaster into this Nerf Han Solo DL44 blaster. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, click on the card here and check that video out. Let's do this. Alright guys, I'm back here and I've got some of the paint job done on here. I have to do a little bit of the weathering still with that fine grit sandpaper, but before that we're going to work on the handle. So to start, I kind of started sketching here, got ahead of myself, but I went ahead and we're going to start with the actual handle of the gun as a template, tracing template, set it on the wood scrap, and then do our tracing marks. And then I'm going to take this, place it, let's place it back over that trace area. And there's this little piece that cuts in and over. I'm going to make a mark with my pencil at that angle. Okay. Then I'm going to take this off of here. I'm going to line that up with what I traced. And I'm going to continue tracing this outline. So that's going to give me the general shape I'm going to need. I'm going to need to stay right within these guidelines for the handle, so it'll end up fitting nice and snug and flush like this one did. So I'm going to continue with the other side, and then we'll get to cutting these pieces out. Alright guys, now I'm going to start work on cutting out the handles I had traced on this scroll saw. I got a couple other tools I'm going to be using to aid me in the process of sculpting this wooden handle. I'll be cutting it out first with the scroll saw, then I'm going to use my Dremel sanding drum to start really shaping things. And then the next phase would be to use the my hand sander here to really start evenly buffing down and doing a final shaping of the handle. Be sure when you're using any kind of power tools to always wear the proper protection. I've got my safety glasses here, and I've got my hearing protection here while I cut this. Alright guys, now after my Dremel sculpting, I have something like this. It's almost there. So I've got most of the shaping and rounding off done, but I'm going to get more of an even sculpt and really smooth things out by going back to this hand sander and then just going around all the contours and really fine-tuning that shape, and that should finish it off. It turned out pretty good. Actually turned out great. So as you can see right here, that's the original, and here's the wooden version of it. Pretty much the same thickness, same size, and to boot, it fits perfectly right there into that handle. So the next process, yet again on this side, is to add the wood varnish, or the staining. Alright guys, we got the, once again we have the black paint job done, and what I'm just going to do is I'm going to take this fine grit sandpaper, I believe it's 100 grit, not sure, what are we looking at? It's just a fine wet dry sanding paper, and I'm just going to buff edges on here just lightly, be careful, just until the gray, silver gray underneath shows in to give it that weathered look. Alright, did a little bit of the sanding, and I happen to have a little bit, and you can't see it here, but a little bit of blue show through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a silver Sharpie marker. This is another quick fix. A silver Sharpie marker, and I'm just going to kind of dab in some of those areas to fill in that blue that I don't want seen. Alright, we've got the shaping done on the handles, and I went back and did a little bit more weathering on the gun. So again, laid the automotive primer down, then the black paint, and then went over it with the fine grit sandpaper, and just kind of rubbed away areas where wear would be on there. But then I also went back and went over it with my silver Sharpie marker, where I wanted to create a little bit more of a paint chipping effect. And then especially on this right side of the gun where that band runs across it, there's a lot of, when I looked at some photos, there's a lot of paint chipping across there, so I went ahead and took this Sharpie marker and colored in those areas to create that chipped effect. And then I went over quite a bit over all the other rubbed and worn areas to give it that more metal look. And it turned out great. Alright, so back to the handle here. What we're going to do next is, well, in order to put this all together, I've got to have the screw holes put back in here just as it was. I'm going to grab this, see, we've got those screw holes. I've got to put those back into this wood. So what I'm going to do now is take a pencil and the side of the gun here, and line that up, flip it over, and then those are the screw holes I need. I'm going to go ahead and draw those in. Make sure I got it nice and lined up well. Draw my circles. Okay. So I'll start with this side. You'll see that that's where the screw holes are. Right there and right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my drill and do the next part. Alright, I got my drill set. And what I did was I took one of the screws from the assembly, and then my drills, and what I was looking to do is finding a drill bit that would be just a little smaller than the screw. So this one is a 1/16 inch drill bit, and it's about the size of the centerpiece of the screw, just smaller than the threading on there. And I want to make sure I have that so there's a good bite to the threading when I put these together. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pencil in kind of where I drew those circles, and kind of pencil in a rough center point on those. It doesn't need to be an exact science on this part, because the assembly on these guns are pretty forgiving where the screw holes are. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball the center of the circles here. Draw crosshairs to give me a good center point to drill that out. So I'm going to take this drill bit out as far as it'll go, or at least far enough to really dig into the wood, and I am going to place these on the gun piece back to back. Line it up on this side, firmly line it up on that side, so that when I screw it together, it's going to go together like that. And then I'm going to take my drill bit and at least go through here and make a mark on the other side in theory here. So I don't want it to go through the other side of the wood. especially since I'm holding it. Probably not a good idea, but... Alright, so that felt like it went through. Here's hoping. And yes, it did. Awesome. Okay. So now we've got our mark space. I think it could have went in far enough, but just to be sure, what I'm going to do is I only want it to go in, say, 1/8 of an inch, 3/16 of an inch into here. So what I can do is take my calipers. 3/16 of an inch would be 0.190 in a digit form. So I'm going to do that. Take a look at the depth there, if that's what I'd like. Well, good. I think I'm going to back it off just an 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go 0.13. And that's about how deep I'm going to make sure that this is. In fact, I can probably eyeball that. So I'm looking at that. If you look at this end, there's a little bit, that little bit of thickness. So I'm going to make sure that I have that much in the wood here. Maybe a little bit more. Good. Okay. So, that seemed to work well. Drill off to the side. Got a little bit of rough bumps there from pulling the drill bit out. I'm just gonna buff that down a little bit. Okay. Next, what I'm gonna need to do is I'm gonna need to countersink this so that screw goes down into it like, you know, the normal Nerf gun has that countersink that the screws go down in when you assemble it. So I'm gonna need to create that on this side. So what I'm going to need to find now is a drill bit that is a little bit larger than the head of this screw. Again, I can go back to my digital calipers, zero everything out, and I can measure this, the head of the screw. Look at that, 0.160. Okay, so that's 2/8 there. Or correction, 1/6 a little bit less than that. So now I'm going to find, well, what I can do. The head of the screw is 1/6, so I can go through my drill bits and find. I can just test my calipers on here and find the depth that I want. I know it's got to be 0.13 is an 1/8 inch, so it's got to be a little bigger than that. Probably going to be, the next size up is 9/64. So 9/64 comes to 0.138. Okay, that's 0.138. Going back to the head of the screw, that is 0.167. So I'm going to need something that's like 0.2. So let me check. Well, I could go to actually, why don't I do a 190, just 3/16. So that's 0.17 right here is what this one measures out to. Oh, there it is, 0.18. 0.190 round up. And this one is 0.17. 0.17, 0.190, that might do it. If not, I can go up to 7/32. I think that should do it. All right. Alright, so now that I've got my drill bit out, this was 0.17 on the head of the screw. This is 0.19. So I'm going to put that into the drill, and then we're going to just add a countersink to that. Now I did measuring before on this with the calipers, and this is about 3/8 inch, so 0.38, 0.375 is the overall length of this screw. So I want to countersink it down about 0.190, 0.2 into this wood. So what I'm going to need to do is go back to that tape measure, the adding the tape technique. And marking out how deep I need to go on this drill. So I'm already at 190, oddly enough, on this digital caliper, so I'm going to just kind of eyeball it here. In fact, let me take a full measurement of this. So this depth overall, we're looking at about 1/2 inch. So 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch is halfway. That's a little bit deep there. I don't know if I want to go that deep, so I think 0.190, 0.2 is not a bad depth. So if I go to 0.190, 3/16 of an inch into things, maybe even 0.18, a little bit less than that. Yeah, let's go, because we want to make sure it bites into the other end. I'm gonna go with 0.190, and we're gonna take that drill. So it's just going to be a little tip of this. And put my tape. Well, this time I can just use a full thickness of painter's tape. I'm going to mark that off. So go up to the tip right here. Pretty good there. Take this off. Probably enough tape. Alright, so I've only got to go in that little tip right there for the countersink. I'm drilling on the right side here. Center it. I'm just going to try and get in here with the corners of the sandpaper just to kind of buff away any of the rough edges here in the countersink hole. Okay, so I went ahead and used my sanding cone, kind of get up into the corner area here and really buff out all the plastic there. I then ended up going with my little mini cutting wheel here and just cutting out a nice solid, cutting out this section of plastic and then shaping that solid hard 90-degree right here on the end. And then did that on the flip side. I ended up with a really nice flush setup for the handle pieces. Now I'm going to take this out to the paint area and just mask things off, get that with a little bit of black paint. So now that I have everything coated in the black, did the weathering, I'm going to take some graphite and I'm going to spray this on here. I'm going to add some of this and just rub it in with my finger. I might dust it in with this little craft brush. What this is going to do is create that really that sheen, that oiled gunmetal blacking look to it with this graphite. Alright, so now this is the end result. I don't know that the camera can do it justice to show you guys. You can kind of catch a little bit of a glint in the light there. It kind of adds this silvering, this oiled silvering to to the surface there for that more metallic oiled gun look. Okay, now we're gonna start finishing the staining on the wood handle. So I'm gonna take that Minwax. I've just got a large kind of 1/2 inch width craft brush, and I'm gonna be putting on the stain here. And again, I'm using the Minwax Wood Finish Penetrating Stain Red Chestnut number 232. Okay guys, now we're back out here to do the final part of the paint job here. We're going to add a matte clear sealer. I'm using the Rust-Oleum 2x ultra cover, also bonds of plastic, matte clear sealer there. So I'm going to be doing that to finish everything off. Alright, so here is the final finishing touches on the paint job. With the clear sealer, turned out really great. So I've got my chips and my weathering, and you can still see that graphite silvering there, but it's all nice and sealed in with that matte clear coat. So it dulled it just enough so it wasn't too shiny, and had that, and just really aided in that really weathered look. Alright guys, now we finally get to work on the insides of this thing. We're going to modify this for a lot more power. Really unique reverse plunger system here, and a pretty crazy looking spring inside there. So what I'm going to start with first off, though, as you do with all of them, is remove the air restrictors. So you can't really see it there, but there's one of those little a little pin right here. I'm going to go from the back end here with an 1/8 inch drill bit, and I'm going to go in right here, and I'm going to drill, just drill it out, basically a hole straight through, and I should have that little piece pop out, and then we get a nice straight stream of air that increases that power to get more air through. So that's what I'm going to start out with. Line it up here, drill that out. Alright, so that did the trick here. Screwdriver. Alright, got it drilled here. Now, kind of came loose, and I'm going to have some needle nose pliers and pop that out. There it is. Remove that. Now I have a nice clean hole right down through the middle. Oh, there you go. Doesn't catch that right there. So boom, that's what you want on this. You just go from that back end, the 1/8 inch drill. It's going to take a little bit, as you noticed, because what happens is it bites, and this little piece spins inside here, so you're going to have to kind of grip it and get a little bit of pressure, maybe wiggle the tip back and forth so you can get kind of a bite to the plastic, and start sanding that out to remove this little pin, and then you get that hole. That's perfect. That's what you want. So we removed the air restrictor there. Next, I'm going to T-tape the plunger. Again, this is a reverse plunger. It's kind of odd, but I'm going to use this spring to push this down and show you guys. You can just kind of see right there. Right? See where it comes through right there? That's the plunger. It's just this disc that slides in and out through here that has the O-ring on it. So there's little clips on the end of this. So I'm going to take a small screwdriver and very carefully pry these off, so that I can get to the plunger piece and add a little T-tape to get an even tighter seal here. Really careful, this stuff is fragile. Yeah, you gotta be very, very, very careful. These things are so thin, and just practically with your fingernails kind of pry it off really so you don't get too much pressure on these pieces and break them all off. There we go. So take your time on this, guys, so you don't break that. So there, I've removed that piece, and voila, there's the little disc. So now we're gonna, oh yeah, plenty of lithium grease on this, but we're gonna slide this O-ring off right here, set that aside. Now we're gonna put a little bit of T-tape right here to kind of expand this O-ring and get a lot more pressure to seal in a lot more air in that cylinder so you get more power that way. Okay guys, I've got the T-tape wrapped around here. I put the O-ring back on, and I'm sliding it back here. Now how you can test this out that you got air pressure, put your hand over the end of this and push down. There should be no air. See how it's just popping right back up? There should be no air getting through. So that is a great seal right there. I did about 2 wraps, once around, twice around, of the T-tape, and then put the O-ring back on, and that's all set. So I'm going to put that back in, and make sure you have the 2 open spaces lined up, and just very carefully slide that retainer clip back into place. And we're all done with that part of the modification. Hey guys, the time is finally here to where we finally get to the internals part of things and getting everything back together. I've got my trusty dusty cell phone that I took photos from the beginning, so I can use that as a reference to put everything back together. So let's get started. I notice there's a little difficulty right here. Make sure you do not over tighten this screw. Just torque it down just a little bit, because it's got to be able to move nice and free along the track. So make sure you don't over tighten that. The other thing is move it back just a bit. You don't want to push it all the way forward to where it clicks like that. You don't want that to overlock, so just push it till it just stops before inserting the clip. And I'm going to go ahead and do that now so you guys can see there's a little piece right here on the other side, that little wedge. Well, that's got to go kind of glide along this edge of the track, so you don't want that interference, otherwise your Nerf gun won't close properly. And then of course there's these little holes right here that will fit over these to line everything. And what I did is I took the plunger apart. I just took the plunger piece right here to insert into these little trapdoor pieces, and then we can put that back in over after the fact. It's just a lot easier for assembly here because it's a little precarious. There's a little loop right here that goes over that end of the scope here. So I'm going to make sure that's looped over. Everything kind of clicked in place. There we go. Make sure the pegs are there. And even if you want to, there we go, and even kind of tap down on that little spring right here. Right here, tap down on this, push down a little bit, and then it should snap in place. And then if you want to just test it out by placing the clamshell over the top, make sure that that little trigger mechanism's through the center. It should set down really nice and even right there without any interference. Alright guys, one other little tidbit of information. Some of you might have been chuckling seeing me assemble this over and over again. This piston with the tapered spring, when you're going to reassemble it, make sure it's not this way, but this way, the narrow way in first, because if you look down in there, there's a little, yeah, you can see it right there if I move my finger. So there's a hole right there. Well, this fits right down in there. Got the grand finale, the finishing touch here of the wooden broom handle. I've got all the wood stained, and if you can kind of notice, here's a nice shine to it. I also added a bit of Krylon gloss clear lacquer to seal everything in and give it that polished look. So I put that on, and we're just going to go ahead and put these on with the long screws I got at the hardware store. And then that way it's going to go in one side and then bite into the other side and really tighten things down. So we're going to assemble that. I went ahead and went with the stock spring because it turned out this was just insanely powerful, too powerful actually for this gun. Eventually, you know, I had to bear down on this thing to get it to cock almost all the way back. Felt like the whole insides were going to explode, so this is a bit too much power for this, unfortunately. So I'm going to do another video in the near future of just taking a stock retaliator spring and then crimping it down to that tapered shape and putting that in for just a little bit more oomph. But this should have quite a bit of pop with that O-ring being tightened with the T-tape and having the air restrictor taken out. Because it was already shooting pretty well stock, but that's just going to amp it up a lot more by just doing that alone. So without further ado, let's get these wood handles on here. Alright everybody, now that we finally finished this fully modified Nerf Han Solo DL44 blaster, let's put some foam darts in it and try this baby out. I am using little Valentine darts. These are great, great performance on these, and of course in keeping with the classic red blast color on this, I'm using the red darts. Again, this clip holds 4 rounds, but the ease of loading is great on here, so you can quickly load 4, fire them off, quickly load again, and so on. So without further ado, let's try this out. Yeah, so great firing performance on this. I may go back in sometime and put a stock retaliator spring in that. So like we had in the video, I tried the retaliator upgrade, and that was just a bit too much for the mechanics in this. So I stayed with the stock spring for now, but again, the firepower is great. But I think I could probably get a little bit more out of it by taking a stock retaliator spring, which happens to be a little bit, I think a little heavier gauge spring, and put that in there instead. So I'll probably do another video on that sometime and see what the results are with that. But there it is, guys. The Han Solo DL44 blaster. Alright everybody, hope you enjoyed watching part 2 of the 2-part series of converting a standard Han Solo blaster into this Nerf Han Solo DL44 blaster. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please consider doing so by clicking on the icon here. Also click on the notification bell below so you don't miss out on any of our new videos. Damaged Darts signing off.